At 65, I thought I was giving my children a gift by signing my entire property over to them, but the very next morning, they threw me out of my own house. I still remember that day clearly. The sun had just risen, and I was sitting on the porch with a cup of tea in my hands. I believed it was the beginning of a peaceful chapter in my life. My wife had passed away a few years earlier, and my biggest wish was to leave behind comfort and security for my children. I thought, if I sign everything to them now, they will know how much I trust and love them. For years, I had worked hard, saving every penny, buying that house, brick by brick, building a life where my family could feel safe. I was never a rich man, but that house was everything to me. It carried the laughter of birthdays, the aroma of my wife's cooking, and the marks on the walls where my children had scribbled as kids. When my eldest son suggested, "Dad, you should transfer the property to us now. It will save legal trouble later," I believed him. He smiled warmly, and his words felt reasonable. My daughter agreed too, holding my hand and saying, "Don't worry, Dad, we'll take care of everything." I didn't see betrayal. I saw love. I signed the papers with shaky hands, but with a full heart. That night, I slept peacefully, convinced I had done the right thing. But the next morning, everything changed. I woke up to find my son and daughter standing by my bed. Their faces were cold, their voices sharper than ever before. "Dad," my son said, "this house is ours now. You can't stay here anymore." At first, I laughed nervously, thinking it was some kind of cruel joke. "What are you saying?" I asked. "This is my home. Your mother and I built this place." My daughter looked away, avoiding my eyes. "Dad, it's better if you leave. We need the space. We have families now." Those words cut deeper than any knife. I felt the ground beneath me break. The house that had been my life's work was no longer mine. My children, the very people I trusted most, had turned their backs on me. They didn't shout. They didn't argue. They simply told me to pack my things and leave. By noon, I was standing outside the gates of the very house I once called home, holding a small suitcase and nothing else. I sat on the pavement, my heart heavy, watching strangers walk by. Nobody knew that just yesterday I was the owner of that home. Nobody knew that my own blood had betrayed me. For hours, I sat there, feeling invisible. I asked myself again and again, why? What did I do wrong? Was loving them too much my mistake? As the evening came, the streets grew colder. I had nowhere to go. I wandered aimlessly, ending up in a park where I had once taken my children to play. I sat on a bench, staring at the empty swings, my eyes wet with tears. I felt abandoned, lost and broken. I was 65 years old, with no house, no money, and no family by my side. That night, as I tried to sleep on the hard wooden bench, I realized one thing. This was not just about losing a home. This was about losing trust, love, and everything I thought I had built in my life. But deep down, a small voice whispered inside me, "This is not the end. This betrayal will not go unanswered." That night on the park bench was the longest night of my life. The cold wind cut through my clothes, and the wooden seat beneath me felt harder than stone. I closed my eyes, but sleep never came. My mind kept replaying the moment when my children told me to leave. Their voices echoed like a cruel song I could not escape. At dawn, when the sun rose, I stood up with aching bones and a heart heavier than ever. I had no idea where to go. My pockets were almost empty, and I had no family left who would welcome me. For the first time in 65 years, I felt like a stranger in my own world. I wandered through the city streets, searching for some sense of direction. The smell of breakfast from roadside stalls reminded me of my wife's cooking, and I couldn't stop my tears. I had never imagined that one day I would be homeless, betrayed not by strangers, but by my own blood. By afternoon, I found myself near an old mosque. I stepped inside, hoping to find peace. Sitting in the corner, I bowed my head and whispered a prayer. "O God, give me strength. Show me the path. Do not let this betrayal destroy me." As I prayed, an old man approached. He was the caretaker of the mosque, and he noticed my torn expression. "Brother, are you all right?" he asked gently. For a moment, I wanted to hide the truth, but my heart was too heavy. I told him everything, how I had given my property to my children, how they had thrown me out, and how I had nothing left. The old man listened quietly, his eyes filled with sympathy. When I finished, he put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Do not lose hope. Justice may be delayed, but it is never denied. God is watching, and those who betray their parents will not escape their fate." His words comforted me. He gave me a little food and water, and for that night, he let me sleep in a small corner of the mosque. It wasn't much, but it was shelter. Days turned into weeks. I started helping at the mosque, sweeping floors, serving water, arranging shoes at the entrance. In return, I received food and a safe place to rest. People who came to pray noticed me. Some even offered kind words, but no one knew the storm inside my heart. Still, I couldn't stop thinking about my children. I asked myself, should I forgive them, or should I fight for my rights? One day, as I was cleaning, I overheard two men talking. One of them said, "Did you hear about that man? His children took his property and threw him out. He went to court, and the judge ordered the children to be punished." The words struck me like lightning. Court, justice, punishment. Suddenly, a fire lit up inside me. For weeks I had drowned in sorrow, but now I realized silence would only let my children win. If they had betrayed me, they had to face the consequences. The very next morning, I walked to a legal aid office I had once seen in the city. My legs trembled, but my heart was determined. I met a lawyer there, a young man who looked at me with respect when I explained my story. "Sir," he said firmly, "you have every right to take this matter to court. No child can legally force a parent out like this. We will fight for you." For the first time since my betrayal, I felt a spark of hope. We filed a case against my children, and the legal process began. But my children were not silent either. When they heard about the case, they came to the mosque one evening, their faces red with anger. "Dad, why are you doing this?" my son shouted. "We gave you everything, and now you want to take us to court?" I looked him in the eye, and my voice was steady. "No, I gave you everything, and you threw me away like garbage. Now you will answer for it." They stormed away, threatening me with more cruelty, but I didn't back down. The old caretaker of the mosque stood beside me and said, "You did the right thing. Sometimes love must give way to justice." The case dragged on for months. I faced humiliation, endless hearings, and the cold stares of my own children. But every time I stood in that courtroom, I remembered that first night on the park bench, and I told myself, this fight is not just for me. It is for every parent betrayed by their children. The courtroom became my new battlefield. Every time I entered, my heart pounded, not because I was weak, but because I was facing my own blood as enemies. My children sat across from me, whispering to their lawyers, their eyes avoiding mine. Once those same eyes had looked at me with love. Now they carried nothing but greed. The judge, a stern man with years of wisdom on his face, listened carefully as both sides presented their arguments. My lawyer spoke with passion, showing the documents, proving how I had transferred everything out of trust, never imagining betrayal. But my children's lawyer twisted the story. Your Honor, he said, this man gave away his property willingly. He was not forced. He signed every page himself. Now, after regret, he wants to take it back. I felt my chest tighten. It was true. I had signed willingly, but I signed with love, not knowing it would be used as a weapon against me. When it was my turn to speak, I stood up slowly. My knees trembled, but my voice was steady. Yes, I signed the papers. I trusted my children. I gave them everything because I believed they loved me. But tell me, Your Honor, does love throw a father out of his own home? Does respect abandon him on the streets? If this is not betrayal, then what is it? The courtroom fell silent. Even the judge leaned forward, listening closely. Day after day, the hearings continued. Some days, I felt crushed by their lies. Other days, I felt lifted by the truth. The mosque caretaker, my only true companion, came with me to every hearing, giving me strength when my spirit broke. Then came the most painful moment of all. My children were called to testify. My daughter, the one who had once held my hand and promised to take care of me, stood before the court. I looked at her, hoping to find a trace of guilt in her eyes, but she spoke coldly. My father gave us the property freely. He was old, and we needed security. We only asked him to move out for practical reasons. Her words pierced my heart. I wanted to scream. Practical reasons? Was my love just a burden to you? But I stayed silent. My tears spoke louder than my voice ever could. Then my son took the stand. He looked directly at me as he said, "He gave us everything. It's ours now. He should stop dragging us into court. We are his children, not his enemies." The irony was unbearable. My enemies would have treated me with more dignity than my own children had. But then, something unexpected happened. A neighbor from my old street came forward as a witness. She was an elderly woman who had lived next door for years. She told the court how she had seen me thrown out, how she had seen me sitting outside my own gate with a suitcase, begging to be let back in. Her testimony shook the courtroom. Murmurs spread among the people present. The judge's eyes narrowed as he looked at my children, who suddenly shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Evidence piled up. My lawyer brought in documents showing how quickly my children had tried to sell parts of the property after throwing me out. Their greed was visible on paper, undeniable. The turning point came when the judge, looking directly at my children, asked, "Did you truly believe that betraying your father would bring you peace?" They stayed silent. For the first time, their arrogance began to crumble. As I sat there, I realized something. This fight was no longer just about property. It was about dignity, about showing the world that parents are not toys to be discarded once their use is over. The judge announced that the final decision would come in the next hearing. My heart raced. Justice was close, but I knew my children would try every trick to escape it. That night, as I sat in the mosque with the caretaker, he said softly, "Brother, remember, sometimes God delays justice to test our patience, but when it arrives, it silences every lie." I closed my eyes and whispered, "I am ready, Lord. Whatever comes, I am ready." The final day in court arrived. The room was tense, filled with silence so heavy it could crush the strongest heart. My children sat on one side, their faces pale with fear, while I sat quietly on the other, holding nothing but my dignity. The judge entered, his gavel striking the desk. After careful consideration of all evidence and witness statements, he began, "This court has reached a decision." My breath caught in my chest. The judge continued, his voice firm and clear. "It is evident that the property was signed under trust and love, not as a business transaction. It is also evident that the children betrayed this trust by forcefully evicting their father from his own home. Such actions cannot be ignored." He paused, looking directly at my children. "This court hereby nullifies the transfer of property and restores full ownership back to the father. Furthermore, the children are found guilty of elder abuse and are sentenced to community service and legal penalties. Should they attempt further harm, stricter punishment, including imprisonment, will follow." The gavel struck again. "This is the judgment of the court." At that moment, my world shifted. I wasn't dreaming. I had won. Justice had spoken, louder than all the lies, stronger than all the betrayal. I turned to look at my children. Their heads were bowed, their arrogance shattered. Once they had thrown me out of my home, now they stood condemned before the law. Tears welled up in my eyes, not of sadness, but of relief. The caretaker of the mosque, who had stood by me through everything, placed his hand on my shoulder and whispered, "Brother, God has written victory for you." When I walked out of the courtroom, people looked at me differently, not as a broken old man, but as someone who had stood tall in the face of cruelty. Days later, I returned to my home. The gates opened, and for the first time in months, I stepped into my own courtyard. The walls, the rooms, the very air seemed to welcome me back. I ran my hand across the doorway, whispering, "I am home." But even in that moment of victory, a part of me was heavy. These were my children. I had raised them, loved them, sacrificed for them, and yet they had chosen betrayal. I could forgive them as a father, but I could never forget as a man. In the evenings, I still sat on the veranda, watching the sun set, reflecting on everything. The property was back in my name, but more importantly, my dignity had been restored. One night, as I prayed, I realized something deeper. This fight was never about wealth. It was about respect. Wealth comes and goes, but respect, once lost, must be fought for with every drop of strength. And to every parent listening to my story, I say this: do not give up everything blindly. Love your children, but never hand over your dignity. Because once respect is gone, no wealth in the world can buy it back. My story is one of betrayal, but also of justice. I was thrown out, humiliated, broken, but I rose again, not because I was strong, but because truth was stronger than lies. So if you are hearing my voice right now, remember this lesson. Trust is precious. Love must never blind you to reality. And justice, though delayed, always comes. Soft pause. Emotional tone. This was my story. If it touched your heart, if it opened your eyes, then I ask you with humility, please like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to my channel. Because somewhere out there, another parent might need this reminder. And maybe, just maybe, together, we can create a world where no father, no mother is ever betrayed again.